computer, so she's recording. Okay, now, here we're talking about suppressed exceptions. All right, now these are exceptions that occur, we don't get any information about them. All right, so we don't know that they've actually occurred. So it doesn't matter if they're checked or unchecked, they still happen. All right, now you can see here cafe, the closed method of the cafe class. Cafe closing, we're trying to get to a file doesn't exist. We have buffered reader IN files, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Okay. Now, that generates an IO exception. Okay. That generates an IO exception. And when we run it, now, so this generates an IO exception. However, if we look here, what's actually being caught is the exception generated by that guy, which is an array index out of bounds exception. Now, and to prove an exception has actually happened, okay, if we look here, all right, so it closes the cafe. So opening my cafe, it says cafe closing, okay, so the method does run, all right, then it gets to here. Now, it's not that guy that produces the exception. It's that guy. That's what produces the exception. Okay? Now, an exception is generated, which means it never gets to that line. See it? Closed for good is there. So an exception is generated and it's not dealt with. Okay? Everyone with me so far? Yes? All right. Now, so I go here. Now, so we don't see any information about it here, right? So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do exactly the same here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it down to here. Okay, so this is getting information about suppressed exceptions. Okay, so so this goes along here. Open my cafe for a second time. Go here. Now, so it goes to here. Now, we don't see information about the exception, right? So we could think that, okay, that file exists, fine, no exception was generated, so the file exists, so there's some other problem, right? But it isn't, the file doesn't exist, right? So what we have to do here is, so something called a suppressed exception was generated, okay? A suppressed exception was generated. So if you want to get information about the suppressed exception, right? So for a start anyway, what exception is caught here? So this catches the primary non-suppressed exception, which is array index out of bounds exception. Okay, so this is the primary exception. Okay, so this catches the primary non-suppressed exception, right? Now, so in the catch block, we're going to, there is a command called get suppressed, okay? Now, so it's e.get get suppressed. Now, what that returns is an array of all the suppressed exceptions. Okay, so when this guy catches an exception, it not alone catches the primary exception, it also catches the suppressed exception, but we can't see information about it. Okay? Let's try something here a minute. Give me a second. Aha. All right. Right. So now this lad here can deal with all exceptions. So primary exceptions and suppressed exceptions. Okay. So to prove it. Now that's only the name of the array. All right. So it's an array. So I'm going to see how many suppressed exceptions we have. So I go dot length. We have 1. Okay, so I'll put in here. Get suppressed returns an array of throwables. Okay, returns an array of throwables. Throwables is the superclass of all exceptions. So throwable, so it goes throwable is the superclass. Then we have exception. Okay. So throwable is the superclass exception. And what's the superclass of throwable? Object. Okay. So suppressed returns an array of throwables which are all the suppressed exceptions generated by the try with resources, or any exceptions that were generated in the try braces. Okay, so the cafe does generate an exception. Okay, this generates a checked exception. Checked IO exception. Probably a file not found exception. All right. So what this is doing is this is getting the amount of suppressed exceptions that were thrown by try cafe my cafe is equal to new cafe. Okay, there was only 1. Okay, now we want to get information about. Now we know there's only 1 in it. So if we go e dot get suppressed, that's an array. 0. Okay. No such file exception. Okay. Now, normally, when you're using get suppressed, you use an enhanced for loop. Okay. Usually, when you're using get suppressed, you use an enhanced for loop. So you'd go for throwable t. So e dot get suppressed. Okay, so it's going to use this throwable object to go through this array of throwable objects. What we're going to do, so exception is plus t, and message is t.getMessage. And if you want to do this print stack trace or print stack trace thing, you go e.print stack trace. Okay. I'm sorry, that printed out. Now I'm going to run that. Now, that's not an error. That's the stack trace. Okay? So that's not an error. That's the stack trace. Okay? So goes down to here. I go after the exception. Our code continues. There it is. Okay? So how do you get suppressed exceptions? You use the command e.getSuppressed, which returns an array of throwables, which are the suppressed exceptions generated by the try with resources. It's whatever we have in here. If any of these guys produce an exception, and an exception is also produced inside the try block, a suppressed exception are generated. Now, you can have more than one suppressed exception, all right? Where I said before, if you've got multiple exceptions inside a try block, you basically have to split it up into different try catch blocks, all right? However, with suppressed exceptions, you don't have to do that. I'll show you what I mean. Now, just do a small bit of work before we do it. All right, I want us to create a club class, please.
No, on line 268, is there a dot?
268, yeah?
Is there a dot there before the 0? No?
No.
Like that, is it?
Yeah, because remember when you're getting an array, if you have an array, right, and let's say your array is called nums, all you have to do is go nums. That'll get the first item in the array. That'll get the second item in the array. That's the exact same thing. E.getSuppressed is an array. So what is this doing? This is come on off. Okay. This gets the amount of suppressed exceptions. Okay. There's only one. So we get the first throwable in this array. Gets the amount of exceptions. E.getSuppressed returns, it's an array of our suppressed exceptions. Okay. E.get is an array of our suppressed exceptions.
If you put in the one, that itself would give it.
Sorry?
That itself would give it exception.
Yeah, it would. We don't, you geez, don't want to do that. Okay? So yes, if you put that in, yeah, and we don't want to do that. Okay? Right.
Can we see how much surprise exceptions we have in the EX7?
Sorry?
In all of the EX7?
No.
Have to do try-catch.
Yeah, you'd have to do it for each one. Now you could save them all to an array as you're going along, or a list, or a stream, or whatever. Okay, but no, they're all independent of one another. Right now, we are going to do a couple of different classes.
No, just one last thing.
Yep.
That was 273 there. Where's the output for that line?
T.getMessage is that guy, src _test3.txt. Okay. Now, they don't go in exact order. So sometimes print stack trace, you can have messages in the middle of it and all sorts of things. Okay. But that one there is just giving you all the details of it. So exception is down here. Exception is java.inio.file.no such exception, blah, blah, blah. Message is, that's the message. Print stack trace starts here and it goes all the way down to there, and then it says our code continues. All right. Now, we are going to create a club class. So I'm going to close the cafe and I'm going to close the shop. Now I'm going to create a club class. I'm going to create a club class. And to go along with the club class, I am going to create a class that's going to handle exceptions that are going to create the club class. So I'm going to call this new. I'm going to call it club no close exception. All right. Now, so we have a club and we have a club no close exception. Now, club no close exception extends runtime exception. Okay. And I'll put a little statement inside here. I'll go here. I'm going to create a constructor. And it's just going to say, I'm not going to do anything. It's going to be club no close exception. Right. Now, and in the club class, we're going to have an implement auto closable. Okay. Now, this is going to throw club no close exception. Okay. And we're just going to say club closed. And then we're going to say throw you club close exception. I need to save that one. Club no close exception. Now I'm making them runtime exceptions to make things run smoother, because when you have exceptions, it can be a little bit of an issue. So next one we're going to do is a bar. Clubs, bars. So we've done pubs, we've done cafes, bars, clubs. Can we do anything else besides bars? Friggis, we'll do bars. Okay, so this is going to be new class. This is going to be a bar. And the bar class is also going to have a bar. So go here. So this is a bar, no close exception. And this also extends runtime exception. oops, shit, sorry, it's the wrong one. It's one-time exception. All right, and I'll just put in a constructor here as well. Bar, no close, exception created. Okay, now, so in the bar class, it's also going to implement auto-closable. Okay, and this is going to say bar closed. And this is going to throw new, I'm going to get that, copy and paste it. Bar closed exception. All right, now, so we have a club and a bar. Now the club and the bar both have their own exception classes. One of them is called club no close exception, and the bar is one called bar no close exception. All right, now both of their close methods, sorry, this should be throws this guy. I don't want it to throw exception. Okay, so both bar and club both implement auto-closable. That means they both have a close method. The club method throws club no close exception, and it actually also generates a club no close exception. The bar also implements auto-closable. It has a throws bar no close exception, and it actually generates a bar no close exception, which it throws out. Okay, so we're going to put these two lads in a try with resources. They're going to be suppressed exceptions. We're going to access them and we're going to see what happens. Is that okay? Right. So this is examples.ex8. So it's static void ex8. So this is multiple repressed exceptions. So we're going to try. We have a club. My club is equal to new club. Now, we can have a second one. You can have as many as you want. So the next one is a bar. My bar is equal to new bar. So we're going to put in that guy. Okay. Now, if I just left it like that, just go to main. Give me a second now. Right. Now, if I just left it like that, what happens is that it goes down all the way here. Now, so club and bar. Now, so both of the close methods for club and the close method for bar will be called. All right. Now, the order they're called is important. The first one called is the bar method. Okay. The next one's called the club. All right. Why is that going on and off? Now, I don't know.
So it's last is first.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so as you can see there, the bar was closed first. All right. So this closed method is called first. This one is closed second. Now, so bar closed. Bar no close exception created. Club closed. Club no close exception created. All right. Now, the exception that causes a program to crash in the end is a bar no close exception. Yeah. Okay. So this closed method is called first. So your program will crash because the exceptions are not being dealt with. All right. Now, so we're inside still. This is the try block. We're inside the try block. Now, inside the try block, I'm just going to print off a statement. I'm going to say inside try block. Okay. Now, that runs before the close method. Yes? Because the close method runs at the end of the try block. Okay? Close method runs down here. Okay? Okay? So the close method for both, so close method for bar, then for club runs here. So at the end of the try block. This is the end of the try block. Okay? Now, inside the try block, I'm going to do our little piece of code here that generates a array index out of bounds exception. All right, so now, if I run it now, it's array index out of bounds exception. Now, by the way, if we have a look at it down here, so our program does crash. Simple as that. However, we'll see that we have information about array index out of bounds exception. We can see the word here, suppressed com.android.bar no close exception. You can see here suppressed com.android club no close exception. So when your program crashes, you can see all the exceptions that were generated. All right. If you were just 3 exceptions inside the try block, it would only show the first exception. Do we understand that? If I had 3 exceptions generated inside this try block, only the first exception would be generated because the code would not execute after the first exception. However, when there are try with resources, all the information about those exceptions is recorded. You just have to be able to access it. Now, I'm going to go down here and create a catch. So I'm going to catch exception. Now, if I go along here and if I just main exception, sorry, primary exception is, so it's whatever E is. E is quite simply E dot, just leave it there. Now, so if we're only getting information, so if your program runs fine, all right, it only sees that exception. So put here this will only see the array index out of bounds exception that was generated in the try block. Okay, this generates this guy. Now, but it still has the information about the suppressed exceptions, right? So if we want to get the information about the suppressed exceptions, so I go, so amount of repressed exceptions is, we go e.get suppressed dot length. Okay, e.get suppressed is an array of throwable objects that are all our suppressed exceptions, that are our two suppressed exceptions. Okay, now if we want to print them all out, we go for throwable te.get suppressed, that's throwable lowercase t, and then we just go quite simply is plus t, and they're there. Okay, so if you have a try with resources, and if you have a catch block with your try with resources, always check for suppressed exceptions. You don't necessarily have to do it in your final code, but always check for them. All right, because it's too easy to miss out on the fact that you're trying to access a file. You think you're accessing the file because you don't see any exception thrown up here, but it might be accessing a file at all. All right, so you always check when you're using try with resources. You should always put this little check in as well. How would I do that with streams? How would I do that with streams?
You want specifically show the exception?
No, it's even simpler than that. So you can create a stream directly from a list, right? So I go arrays as list. I put in e.get suppressed and dot stream dot for each. Now, so using streams to print out all suppressed exceptions. There. Okay. Arrays as list takes an array, you go stream it out for each system print lane. So you could do any sort of filtering you want, whatever you want to do. You can convert them to strings, do whatever it is you want to do. Okay, you could have your stream that will filter out only certain exceptions. It'll filter out only checked exceptions, that sort of thing. Okay, so that is all we need to know about repressed exceptions. So if we're using try with resources, and if you're in any doubt that if you're using try with resources and you're using a catch block with the try with resources, always check for suppressed exceptions. The simplest way to check for suppressed exceptions is just when you're catching, just go e.getSuppressed.length, and that'll show you the amount of suppressed exceptions that are there. All right, because these lads are very easy miss. You see in the previous example here with this one. This is a checked exception. Okay, it's a checked exception and it's not caught. Well, it's caught, all right. You don't see it's caught. You don't realize that in the process of doing this, it attempted to access a file that doesn't exist. Okay, you have no message telling you there. So what you need to do is them guys. Okay, now as well also, as I've already said, when you have multiple resources in a try with resources, okay, the close method is called in reverse order. So it calls bar first, then club. Okay, so it calls bar first, see it there, and then club. Bar suppressed exception was the first exception. Club no close exception was the second exception. Okay, so it goes, so the close methods are called in reverse order, namely the bar close method first, and then the club close method. Okay, now, so that is everything to do with try with resources. Now we come back to them again when we're doing threads. We come back to them again when we're doing files. Now it's not in databases, but we are going to use them for databases as well. Okay, because they make your life a lot easier when using them with databases. Is that okay?
It's no fair to know you one catch expression there,
Yep.
exception. If you hit two of them, one for the range of several times and the other one for exception, would you only get one of the closing given there?
Yeah, so let me just see. I don't know, Kieran is the honest answer. We'll just see. So I have to put it here for a start, don't I? And I'll put stars beside it to see does it. Let me just see. Right. So what happens there is, I suppose this makes sense really, is this will catch that guy. Okay. And this will catch that guy. Okay, that's the way it works. Okay. Now, I think I have something missing here as well. Now, if you have a finally with it, it's the last thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go finally, I just have a run left. Okay. Now, can I just get rid of this guy for a minute? Comment out that lad. All right. Now, and I put in just, this is in here. End of catch. Right. What am I trying to do here now? Just give me a minute here. Suppressed exceptions. Into the run. Yeah, I'm missing something here about finally. Yeah, just give me a second. There's one thing I've missed out. Catch exception EE. Okay, right. So here's, I knew what I was going to say. Right. So here's our printout for this. So it starts off with multiple repressed exceptions. Okay. Now, try. So you have your try block runs, fine. Okay. You have a try block that runs fine. Okay. Everything just runs, goes down to the end here, and an array index out of bounds exception is run. Everyone with me so far, yes? Now, the close method for these guys runs before a catch block. Okay, so the close for the club operates before any catch or any finally. Do we understand that? Okay, so we have club, my club.close and my bar.close. Okay, now they're implicitly here. So the last thing that happens inside your try block is that it closes the club and it closes the bar, right? That runs before the catch block, because we can see here bar close, that's from the close method of the bar. That generates a bar no close exception. We can see club closed. Okay, and it's only when we get down to this line here, scroll down the screen, that it goes to the catch block. Okay, so I'll say that again. Put it in here. The close methods for both my club and my bar will run before any optional catch or finally block. Okay, so club, my club, bar, my bar. It's going to close the club, it's going to close the bar before it gets to the catch block. All right, I think it effectively does run inside the try block. I'm not 100% sure, but the main thing is it does run before the catch block. So it closes both of those resources, or it attempts to close both of those resources until it closes those resources before it gets to the catch block. Okay, so there's going to be multiple exceptions generated, and these guys generate multiple exceptions we don't need multiple catch blocks to catch them. This guy here will catch all of them. E.get, and you don't have to put in those using multi-catches either. This will catch all suppressed exceptions. Yes? Any questions on that? All right. These are multiple. This produces a club no close exception. This produces a bar no close exception. Okay. Now, it doesn't produce them until it calls the dot close method. So that just creates a club, that just creates a bar. All right. Now, that also means that by the time we get to the end of the try block, it's going to call my club dot close, my bar dot close. So it goes along here, la, la, la. This produces an array index out of bounds exception. All right. Now, however, it doesn't finish at that point. What happens is it closes my club and it closes my bar. Both of those, which one of them produces a club no close exception, the other one closes bar no close exception. So they're both suppressed exceptions. Now, suppressed exceptions are part of this exception. Okay, so this guy here, E, contains the primary exception, which is array index out of bounds, and it also contains two suppressed exceptions. So this object here can contain more than one exception. Do you understand me? Now, the same rules apply. If this is a runtime exception, it can't contain a checked exception. Understand that? It can't contain a superclass. Exception can contain the same exception or a subclass of it. It can't contain a superclass of it, which makes sense. All right? So these objects can contain more than one exception. It contains the primary exception, which is an array index out of bounds, and two suppressed exceptions, which are club no close exception, bar no close exception. All right. So these objects are more complicated than we first thought. Right. And that's suppressed exceptions. All right. If you have a try with resources, and if you have to put in a catch block, always check for suppressed exceptions. You don't need to have it in your final code, but always check for them. All right. Any questions on that? So suppressed exceptions are simply exceptions that are generated in the try with resources. And if we have an exception generated in the try block, and we have an optional catch there, okay? Because the catch is optional. We only put the catch there if this try block produces an exception, or if the try with resources produces an exception. If we're sure they're not going to, then we don't need a catch block.
The catch block generation exception.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I'd say go home. Well, no. Well, then you'd have to put in a try catch block in there. Okay, so you could put a try with resources inside a catch block. Yeah, you can put anything inside anything else in Java. All right, but if your catch block produces an exception, I'd change your code. All right, simple as that. All right, now, so that is try with resources. Done. Okay. Very useful for threads. Very useful for files. Very useful for databases. Very useful for connecting to other applications. All right. I would not. Files. Now we have to show you the Java 7 way of connecting to files because that's what's on the exam. However, I would use only this way for connecting to files. These try resources. You put all your connections in the try part here, and then it closes them automatically. Your threads, you put your your definition of your threads in the try part, and they'll be closed automatically at the end of the try part. You put your connections to your database in there, and then at the end of the try block, it'll automatically close the connection. All right. Using these guys for databases are not on the exam, but we're going to use them because they're much, much simpler. All right. Now, so the next thing we're going to do is this is section 6.5. So yeah, we'll probably get it finished tomorrow. So this is, what do I call this one? This is 6.5. And it's rethrowing exceptions. Okay. Now, I don't know why you'd want to do this, but you can. So we've only got 2 files in it, common main, or examples and main. So this is a short enough chapter. Oh, I better stop that video.